is my favorite conference of the year, the future of TV advertising. It is also, did you know, it is the most innovative conference in the world. This is the very first conference that's ever used AI and machine learning in real time to analyze whether anybody's bullshitting. Did you know that? But the problem is we're now running half an hour late. So please, can nobody mention YouTube and quality advertising in the same sentence again? Because we need to get back on time. Thank you. Sorry, I'm working up to my stand-up routine. Well, I needed to cuss YouTube a tiny bit there because this session is all about playing to broadcast strengths and talking about what is great about broadcasting and also what we can do to make it even better. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Duncan Stewart, who works at Deloitte, Canada, and he's going to be talking to us about the concept of peak disruption, although I think he was a bit confused when I suggested that just now, whether we've actually reached peak disruption and whether young people are now no longer turning away from telly. Duncan, please take the stage.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. And so Deloitte does this thing called TMT Predictions, Technology, Media, Telecommunications. I am the co-author. We will be, in fact, launching the TMT Predictions early this year on December 12th, which is next week. So this is a sneak peek at a couple of it's the future of TV advertising. So I have two predictions for you today, one about the future of TV and one about the future of advertising. It seems apt. I hope these fit. Deloitte's been doing this prediction thing since 2001, so we've got a long track record. They tend to be about 90% accurate, just to help establish our credentials a little. Let's start off by talking about TV. Now, I have numbers for multiple countries, but I'm going to start off with the US just to kind of, as a segue. So U.S. daily traditional TV viewing by those 18 plus in Q1, these are the Nielsen numbers. I hope most of you know the Nielsen methodology. Although there are still some diaries in use, most of it is through passive people meters, warned by people you have to be awake, the sound has to be on, you have to be in the room, and Nielsen has made great strides. For example, this year they now measure viewing on tablets as well as smartphones, computers, and gaming boxes. So it really is quite comprehensive across all devices. Let's make a couple of observations on this slide. First one, gosh, Americans watch a lot of TV. Yeah, for those of you who are bad at math, 300 divided by 60 is 5 hours per day. Everybody cool? Good. Next one, not much time shifted. Although some people do watch time shifted TV, and some people watch a lot of time shifted. On average, it's about 10%, and that amount's not growing very much. Just so you know, the numbers are 28, 29, 29, and 30 in terms of minutes of time shifted per day. The biggest observation that I hope everybody in the room can take away is TV is not dead. TV is not dying. TV isn't even particularly sick when you look at the population as a whole. The year-over-year declines are on the order of 1, 2, or 3 minutes per year. Little steeper here in the UK. Did anybody see the Enders piece that came out yesterday? Nobody here reads Enders. Okay, I'll tell Claire that, and she'll be very angry. Anyway, the Enders piece came out. It looks like the UK number is a little steeper for the first 9 months. You're looking at about, I think it's a 5-minute drop. So little steeper in the UK. All right, happy news. Playing to broadcasters' strengths. Broadcasters haven't got a blessed thing to worry about. Hey, kids. 18 to 24-year-olds in the United States viewing has been dropping, and you know this. It goes up and down a little bit quarter to quarter, but it's been dropping consistently since 2010. The red line right-hand axis shows the annual change. Yeah, Q2 2017 is a bit of a freak out, but you got to remember what was happening a year ago, Q2 U.S. election. A lot of young people were watching debates and all kinds of stuff. The year-over-year numbers are kind of weak. But the first point I want to make is viewing is in decline. Second, this is just the U.S. numbers. Some years it goes down 5. Some years it goes down 10 year over year. Some years it goes down 15. A few times you can see the numbers are in sort of the 20-ish% range, but those are outliers. Now, what I want to show you, because I don't want to focus only on the U.S., is this is the same chart showing viewing in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada, all for the youngest age break measured. As you can see, the UK age break at 16 to 24 is slightly different. One of the things I've done on this chart, I hope you enjoy this one. This will all be available in the Deloitte report launched on December 12th. The thickness of the lines corresponds to population. So the U.S. is the thickest bar, UK a little bit smaller, Canada smallest still. 3 largest English-speaking markets, although there are, of course, large Hispanic communities in the States and French community in Canada. The point I want to make is 3/4 of the annual declines for 18 to 24-year-olds lie within 5 and 15%. And there's no clear trend. Yes, it was really, really bad in 2014 in the U.S., and then the numbers went up. In Canada, it was up, it was down. In the U.K., it was down, and then it was up. I am relatively comfortable saying, anybody here speak French? I was in Paris this morning. French speakers, pause. Yay! Il n'y a pas de point de basculement. There is no tipping point. Anybody here who lived through the newspaper thing of 2003 and 4, looking at 18 to 34-year-olds, we saw readership drop 5%, and then it was 10, and then it was 20, and then it was 40, and then somebody turned out the lights because the last person had left the room. This does not appear to be happening to young people in TV. I'm a little worried about Q2 2017, but there's actually some stuff we have, and I'll talk about this next, I believe. No, first. Here's another one. This is a fun chart. This is the Nordics. This is the latest data annual I could pull. As you can see, different age breaks in each of the 4 countries. All of this data is from the appropriate sources. FinPanel in Finland, Kantar in, I believe, Sweden and Norway, and I can't remember the name of the Danish measurement firm. See the trend? It's a random walk. Some years it's up. I mean, what's going on with Finland? Some years it's up, and then it's down, and then it's -14, and then it's only down -3. And just as the same time that the Danes and the Swedes are watching less, the Finns are watching. Okay, and your explanation. By the way, happy 100th anniversary. But why? What's going on with crazy Finns? You know, there is no point de basculement, no obvious tipping point. Now, all of that, I just want to get out our Deloitte prediction, which is very brave. In Canada, the U.S., and the U.K., we predict that viewing by 18 to 24-year-olds in 2018 will be down between 5 and 15%. What is that old phrase? Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. We're deliberately throwing out a really broad range. Our point is it's not down 30 and it ain't going up. We believe 2019 about the same. However, here comes the brave bit. When you look at the stuff that kids 18 to 24 could do instead of TV, something kind of interesting has gone on over the last few years. Phones have gotten a lot bigger. Remember 4 years ago when people talked about these things called phablets, and you went, no, I'll hang on to my 3.5-inch iPhone until they pry it out of my cold, dead hand? You all have 5.5-inch phones now, and the next version of the iPhone 10 is supposed to be 6.5. Now, the nice thing about that is that people watch a lot of YouTube and stuff like that on their phones because they got bigger screens. So if you're in the TV business, that's like, oh no, I'm going to freak out. The nice thing is they aren't getting much bigger. At about 6 inches, they are as large as you can hold in a human hand or fit in your pocket. So we think the effective screen size is going to slow down. Social media has grown enormously since 2011. Time spent on social media is now over an hour a day. But do you know it's been flat for the last 2 years? Sorry? You can make phone calls on them? I never knew that. Cool. There's some phone calls as well. But time spent on social media is more or less flat for the last 2 years. It shifts for young people between Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat. The share moves around, but the number of actual minutes spent is flat. YouTube, by kids, growing, but only about 5% a year. It used to be doubling year over year. Time spent on the smartphone, now over 2.5 hours a day, growing at about 10% a year. It used to be growing at 150% year over year. Time spent on SVOD like Netflix. Penetration is already at 90% in English Canada. Time spent flat. Take a look at the latest Netflix quarterly. The amount of time that people are viewing Netflix is stabilized. From 2011, 12 to 2017, we have had a siren call, a perfect storm of things that pulled 18 to 24-year-old eyeballs away from traditional TV, and none of them are going away. All of them will be here next year. All of them will still be an attractive siren call, but there won't be more of them. Penetration is already at 90%. Time spent is already at hours per day. So my prediction for 2018 and 19 is that it's going to be closer to 5 to 10% annual declines rather than 10 to 15 or above. The peak disruption, if you will, has passed. It does not mean the numbers go up. They don't. It does not mean young people are going to watch more TV. They won't. It does mean that we are unlikely to see an exponential drop in the same way that we have seen in other traditional media. One quick point just before I move on. If young people are watching less TV and overall TV is more or less flat, then somebody else is watching more. Those over 65 in the United States in Q1 of 2017 watched 444 minutes of television live and time shifted per day. That's 7 hours and 24 minutes a day. However, people over 65 in the United States, UK, and Canada are 20% of the population, 30% of spending, and 40% of net wealth. Monetizing 65 plus for the TV industry is like turning silver into gold. You guys like that one, eh? There's a lot of different ways people can ad block. Show of hands, please. Show of hands. Who here has a computer ad blocker? Woof. Who here has a mobile phone, smartphone, or tablet ad blocker? Not as many. Oh, a few. Okay. Now, who here has a PVR, DVR, or smart TV and fast forwards through almost all of the ads? Hands? Oh, you guys are killing the TV industry. Anybody here have SVOD like Netflix, and the main reason is that it's ad-free? Yeah, a few people. Okay, interesting. Then there's music streaming, Spotify. Anybody have Spotify Premium so you don't hear the ads? You pay money to avoid ads. That's ad blocking. Then there's the lower tech solutions. Does anybody here? Now, I know this is a little different in the UK because you folks have your ad breaks synchronized, I believe, on both TV and radio, but I'm North American. Anybody else in the room? Does anybody here change the TV station when an ad comes on? Yeah, that's the low-tech ad blocker. Radio station? I haven't heard a radio commercial in 30 years. So this is data that we pulled out. Deloitte just conducted this. And our theory is that there are people out there who aren't just using one kind of ad blocker, they're using multiple. And our term is that there's a percentage of the population that are blocking most of the ads they see. In other words, 4 or more kinds of ad blocking. And the term we use for this population of obsessive ad blockers is, are you guys ready for this? Come on, this is pretty cute. Oh, come on. I know you're going to use it. Adlergic. Now, we've actually got numbers on this one. Here you go. This is US, Canada, and we did it in Turkey. We weirdly had a client who was willing to pay for the research, so we got it there too. What we have, it just Canada, US, Turkey does sound slightly odd, so that's why I explain it. About 20% of people in these countries don't block any ads at all. I guess they love ads. Okay, good for them. About 80% of people block at least one kind. About 50 block two, and all these numbers are probably rising year over year, of course. 50% block two or more, 30-ish, 25-ish% three, about 10% in the US and Turkey block four or more. Now, there's a real critical insight there. If somebody tells you, by the way, this is both digital and traditional, right? This is radio, this is TV, this is smartphones, this is computers, all both kinds. If somebody tells you that everybody's blocking all the ads, they're wrong. If somebody tells you, well, don't worry that they're blocking this kind of ad, we'll catch them on the flip side, they might be wrong. There are actually people who are out there. Almost nobody blocks everything, but there's a percentage of the population that is strongly adlergic. And as a little test for the fine audience here this afternoon, who are these people? Big shock. They tend to be younger. 18 to 34-year-olds are over 3 times more likely to be blocking 4 or more. They tend to be higher income, significantly 2-3 times more. People who are more educated are more likely to ad block. And that last one is sort of interesting. In the States, people who have jobs are more than twice as likely to be ad blockers than people who don't have jobs. Let me get this straight. Younger people with higher income, more education, and employed are the ones who are blocking most of your ads. Not that that's relevant to the advertising medium. I'm going to close. I've got time for one question. And, there's actually a point I want to make here. What do you do? What do you do to reach these people who are blocking all your ads? Social. Harder to block inside a social stream. Mobile, ad blocking rates are lower on mobile. Sponsorships, logos, product placements, you know the drill. What's one of the big ones? I'll tell you, we didn't include it on the survey, but I've done a lot of them, and I'll just ask the folks in the room, who here closes their eyes when they're driving and they see a billboard? Come on, don't be shy. Oh, good. Remind me not to drive in your car, okay? Out of home is, in fact, as you probably know, one of the fastest growing ad categories worldwide, because you can't ad block a billboard. I'm going to close off with this one, less relevant so who here's UK? Who here's from the UK? Okay, and who here's not UK? Oh, wow. Okay, this might be super relevant then. Who here has the internet at home and it's cellular only? No fiber, no cable, no telco, no DSL. Cellular only. We call those mobile only, and we did a survey in these countries, and we found out that of people who have the internet at home in the UK, only about 5% of people rely on mobile only. But it's higher in France, it's higher in Spain, it's higher in Russia. In the US, it's 19%. In Canada, it's 23%. And as you can see, 27% in Turkey. Estimates for Brazil are about 35%. Why am I telling you this? I have really high-speed cable at home. Everybody I know has really high-speed internet at home. The average CEO I talk to has 3 fiber lines coming into her or his house. There is an assumption that everybody we know out there is connected to this blazingly fast network with no limits, and that is not the case. There are significant parts of the population that do not have high speed. They are sipping through a straw, and when you want to go show them a 5 gig 4K virtual reality 360 video, they're shaking their head and going, that's my month's data right there. This is me, Duncan Stewart. Follow me. You can email me. Follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, please do reach out. Instagram, if you want pictures of my food, wife, and dog. Snapchat would be peculiar. Let's not go there. I think we have time for one question. Lady right there.
Can you wait for the microphone? And
There's only one
yourself?
mic for obvious reasons. I stole the other one.
Duncan, you're going to be limited to a tweet's worth for your answer.
Of course.
But I'm going to be nice and give you 280
I've
characters.
got 115 seconds left.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, as you said that all in TV reaches a large number of older people. Although my question is, one thing is like reaching like a lot of people. One other thing for advertiser to actually monetize or have a return on investment. Like older people, they tend to be creatures of habits, for what I understand, so kind of brand loyal. So yeah, what do you say about that?
Yes, they used to be people who were 75, 20 years ago, lived through the Great Depression, lived through World War II, lived through rationing. They hated the idea of debt, and when they found a brand, they stuck with it like grim death, and they wouldn't spend on anything. So advertising to old people, the lifetime value of a 65 plus was low. But the people who are 65 in the year 2025 were born in 1960. They're going to have different habits. They are already displaying signs of much lower brand loyalty, of willingness to shift, of willingness to spend. Now, as much as 18-year-olds? No. But I would argue that our perception of the spending habits of 65 plus need to evolve, because this is not necessarily an age thing. It is to some extent a cohort and a generational thing, and I think we will see some shifting behaviors there. On that note, thank you all very much and have a great rest of conference.
Thank you very much, Duncan. What a great presentation. So, whoever coined that term peak disruption, they deserve a 300 grand a year job with Deloitte. Brilliant phrase. Thank you very much, Duncan. Superb presentation. So we've heard about how actually young people are now not turning away from TV in droves, as various digital upstarts have been telling us for years. Next, I want us to hear about how broadcasters are using technology to actually tap into new audience and drive new revenue. And for that purpose, I'd like to invite David Springle from YoSpace onto the stage. David. Thank you, Jim.
Good afternoon, everybody. David Springle, I'm the CTO of YoSpace, and we are a streaming technology company that specializes in dynamic ad insertion into live streaming. Okay, this clicker's not working. So what I'm here to present is sort of the findings of a report that we sponsored a company called MTM to research. MTM are an international research and consultancy company that specialize in the media technology and advertising arena. So the report itself, you can download from our website, yospace.com/MTM. And it basically, the three main topics that it covered by interviewing executives and leading media firms and ad agencies was to find, first of all, get the feeling of what the current state of live and linear TV was, to determine what the future of the landscape is, of the digital landscape, and the steps that broadcasters should be taking in order to protect and enhance their current position. So, the current state of live and linear TV. So, the most obvious thing, which is from Ofcom, is TV can offer advertisers mass reach at a single point in time, which is the online medium is still unable to achieve. And this is something that we've heard sort of many times this morning. It's a range problem. Right. Live TV is the fastest way of getting reach, and to big advertisers, well, and big advertisers are still looking for it. So, high-reach channels have the unique ability to reach an increasingly fragmented media landscape. A broadcaster describes it as having intense value for audiences and advertisers. As the market fragments with online, the GAFA or GAFAN or NAGAF or whatever, however you want to say, the value to advertisers to reach audiences in mass, in a concurrent manner is increasing. That value is being seen not just by, obviously, the broadcasters that currently own the rights or are used to having the rights. It's also being seen by the tech companies as well that are moving more into the live space. So it's not an area that we feel that we can just assume that will always be in the domain of the traditional broadcast space. Online companies can disrupt online sports as well. So that value is being recognized. That's why we're seeing the major tech companies jump in. They're global and they have cash. This is an attractive combination to a sports rights owner, a global media agency provided. So on addressable advertising, now we've talked about addressable advertising quite a bit today. There's addressable, which is the AdSmart type technology, which has a certain level of granularity, and then there is the online targeting, which theoretically you can target individuals. Of course, the ability to target individuals is entirely based on data, and I'll be talking about that a bit later on. But fundamentally, the idea of being able to focus your creative to different demographics or different groups of users. So, a US broadcaster said, we've got to maximize the value of the live linear audience. Ultimately, that's going to be enabling dynamic ad insertion on our players and via the TV. Broadcasters need to go out and invest in the technology that can tap into the advertising money. If they can do that, they can grow TV ad spend dramatically. Part of the advantage of the word that actually was used was ROI, but the context was meaning increasing revenue per ad, is that it allows us to bring down our ad load. Now that consumers have a strong ad-free set of alternate experiences, this allows us to offer a cleaner experience. So the first important point is, in order to not survive, but to enhance the value in live streaming or live sports or live TV, you have to build a world-class user experience online. This is for the digital space. Now, there are a number of pillars of this. I could probably talk for an hour on this, but there are three things that we've picked out. The idea of time-shifted or linear time-shifted, where you can rewind to the beginning of the program. If you missed the first part, you can go back. That provides broadcasters or the delivery system the ability to actually contract the broadcast breaks to make them shorter, providing an enhanced online user experience. So the ability to be able to scrub freely through the current program, just as you would if you were recording it via a PVR. But with the ability potentially to apply ad scrubbing policies around how freely the user is able to scrub. Enhanced player. In the case of sports content, users being able to jump around the timeline to specific highlights of the match that have happened, allowing the user to effectively create their own instant replay at will according to how they want to enjoy the match. And of course, you can deliver all of this flexibility and apply your own advertising management around how much you're willing to allow users to scrub ads. And finally, low latency. Online streaming has traditionally been associated with very large latencies, 30 seconds maybe to a minute. A lot is happening in the sort of the really propeller head nuts and bolts area of streaming, which will mean that I predict within 3 years it will be quite common for live streaming to actually match, if not beat in some cases, the latency you see from broadcast television. That is actually going to be technically possible, and there are already demonstrations of it working. It's going to take 3 years or so for it to be rolled out, but that will be possible. Now, that gives a great user experience to the user, but for user-centric or one-to-one addressable advertising, that creates scale problems. In order to make a decision at the point of the ad break, you have to make a huge number of calls, all at a very, very tight, defined moment in time. So you have to start coming up with ways of scaling that. And in order to not just be able to scale it from just first-party sold advertising, but also for third-party and programmatic selling. The ecosystem can't react fast enough if you're working in a very low latency environment. So dynamic content offers great potential for dynamic advertising. So this is I believe a English cricketer, and I'm not much of an expert in cricket, and given that a lot of you are not from the UK, maybe you aren't. But this apparently, I've been told, is a cricketer letting in a goal. And this is something that I believe that we've not seen for quite a while, unless, of course, you've been watching the Ashes. So cricket is an interesting sport in the fact that it probably represents the most dynamic sport. It goes for days. It goes on for 5 days. It's a match that goes on for 5 days that you can put an ad in pretty much every 5 minutes if you want. So it's probably the most monetizable sport I can think of. So sport has fluid break timings. You don't know when the breaks are going to occur. Breaks can be crashed. Something may happen, you need to crash back into the live action. You can also have unplanned high-value ad breaks, extra time, penalties, and so on and so forth. Those in tournament matches, knockout matches, those ads, those unplanned ads, potentially have huge concurrent watching. So all of these things are technical challenges with how do we plan, how do we get the ads into the stream. So the advertising technology that you use has got to ensure that it does not break the user experience. It's got to be complementary to what you do. This is a graph of not scientifically put together, but it's a rough idea of, you have the idea of the league type sports on the bottom left, which have fixed durations. They have a half time, static, relatively static, going through to sort of the knockout tournaments where you have more dynamicism, and you've got right at the top sports that have many opportunities to put advertising in. So taking advantage of that dynamic nature of live sports beyond that which could be done through traditional broadcast methods is another opportunity to drive monetization without annoying the user too much, provided that you're not covering over the content. So on data and collaboration. So as I said, data is vitally important to be able to target, regardless of what the value to various different levels of advertisers targeting actually means. You've got to have data. There has to be a strategic plan for data and a common currency. So we need to get together to protect the industry and revenues. We really need to be pushing forward as one and making the unique value of data-driven TV and advertising clear to agencies. Now, I mean, this is something that, it seems to be quite common throughout this industry, that a need for standardization or at least a common currency of understanding data for agencies is critical. Agencies are looking for specific audiences, and at the moment Facebook knows most about its audience. Advanced TV advertising is going to let broadcasters offer the same insight and targeting around very valuable content. So, in summary, when streaming live dynamic content deliver a great user experience, to carry forward the brand that you've already established in broadcast. Ensure that the advertising technology that you use maximizes the revenue opportunity, but does not disrupt the user experience. And be ready to build and use data to deliver efficient monetization in an increasingly competitive market. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. I think we've got time for a question from the audience, if anyone's got one. If not, I have one myself.
Oh.
Speak now or forever hold your tongue. Oh, is that one? No, that isn't one at the back. Okay, the question I have is, this all looks absolutely great, but how much growth is it going to drive, do you think, in reality? How much more inventory do you see a typical broadcaster begin to unlock as a percentage of their total digital inventory?
That's a good question. It's one I'm possibly not best placed to answer, but what I can do is give you an example of something that we did. We provided dynamic insertion for India versus Sri Lanka 2020 cricket. That's right. It's the fast-moving cricket game. Incredibly scaled to 1.5 million concurrent users, and effectively the online user experience of that would actually had someone manually injecting. They were taking the feed from broadcast, but they were manually injecting ads inside, between wickets, and they generated a huge amount more ad avails by having this, effectively utilizing the technology, which could be more reactive than perhaps in the broadcast, in order to drive enhanced revenue. So I mean, that's going back to the point I made about dynamicism, is leveraging that. One of the things that we're able to do is, if, for example, you put in a 30-second avail, and you realize you have to crash back, we can actually play out the ad, and then that particular user will watch in time-shifted mode until the next avail, and then they catch up with real time. So that's one of the things you can do in this sort of technology that helps that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, David. I think that's all we have time for now. Round of applause, everyone. Thank you. So without further ado, I'd like to move on to our last presentation, which is a case study on the power of TV advertising. So I'd like to invite Ross Duncan up to the stage, who's the media planning manager for Just Eat.
Thank you. Cheers. Hi everybody, I'm Ross Duncan, Media Planning Manager for Just Eat in the UK. Here today to talk about how Just Eat became a household name and how TV helped us along that journey. First of all, who are Just Eat? Well, we operate in 13 different countries. We're an online food delivery platform. In the UK, we have 28,000 restaurant partners. And last week, we actually entered the FTSE 100 with a market cap of around $5.5 billion. So TV is a key medium for us. You can see on the right-hand side, that's a pie chart of our above-the-line spend in 2017. 75% of it is going onto TV, or at least what we're calling TV. So that might be live TV, TV sponsorship, addressable TV, broadcast VOD. We actually haven't run any short-form VOD across 2017 so far. TV works for us, we know that, but it also works hard for our other channels as well, whether that be other above-the-line channels like radio, or below the line like our performance channels such as PPC. So it's that halo effect that we're really tapping into. There's three key pillars that we're using TV for. First and foremost is for fame. What do we mean by fame? Well, basically, whenever anybody's hungry, wherever they are, whatever they want to eat, we want to be able to offer them Just Eat. Consideration, basically we want to tap into the spontaneous decisions that the takeaway market is. So most people order takeaway spontaneously. We want to be visible at scale when they're making those decisions. And finally, normalization down at the bottom there. So that's behavioral change. And 50% of the population in the UK haven't ordered food through an online platform, whether that be ourselves, whether that be Domino's, whether that be Pizza Hut. And really we want to change that going forward, and that's where there's a huge amount of growth for us. So how is TV delivering that? Well, it's actually building brand trust for us. It's building our brand at scale. And that trust is with our audience, so our consumers, but also with our restaurant partners. So that's 28,000 restaurants that we've got out there. And it's doing that at a huge scale. About 70% of our orders come from outside major UK cities, and TV really gives us that reach in places that lots of other mediums can't do. And then finally, down at the bottom, obviously there's behavioral change. People are multi-screening now. Obviously, it's being portrayed as a big negative, but actually we see it as a huge positive. It allows our TV activity to do two jobs. It's the fame job and also actually the response job. So whether that be driving orders or installs in real time. And what this really all adds up to is actually TV is putting just the ads in front of the right people in the right context. So TV viewing is a perfect example of what I mean by context. On the x-axis, you've got time of day going across the bottom. On the y-axis, you've got reach. The red line is watching a TV set, and the purple line is watching a TV set and actually using the internet. And you can see they're both starting to go up around 6 p.m., and then they're peaking around 9 o'clock. Pretty boring chart, doesn't mean anything until you layer in our order pattern. Obviously, there's a huge amount of synergy there, so you can see the scale and the opportunity that actually live TV presents for Just Eat. The next point on context is right place. Now, what do I mean about place? I mean a brand-safe environment, and I mean an environment where people are actually choosing to consume the content, enjoying that content, and actually have a relationship with that content. Here's another example.
There's a way to get your dinner without moving from your seat. If you believe in magic, tonight you can just eat. Magic is real, it's contained within an app. It makes spicy sets one before straight into
A cavalcade of local chefs, wizards of the walk. I here to practice alchemy with fish and chicken stock.
Magic is real, it's contained within an app. Put your feet up and watch Peking duck appear with just a tap.
Magic is pizza, tacos,
Tabloid fish and chips, shish kebab, vindaloo,
and spicy crispy chicken strips.
just eat exactly what you feel. Just eat exactly what you feel. Delivery.
Just Eat. Summon up your favorite takeaway tonight.
Obviously, I couldn't miss the opportunity just to show us our latest ad. Actually, that was meant to have an introduction from ITV. I'm not sure what happened there. But basically, when we launched the ad, we got an introduction from ITV, obviously one of the major TV stations in the UK, and it gave us a 10-second introduction, and it enabled us to actually tap into the brand and the power of ITV, and actually benefit from that brand rub, and almost, I guess, ITV actually confirming that we are now a household name in the UK, and really benefiting from the relationship they have with the viewer. It's a shame it didn't run, unfortunately. And then the final bit about context is time. And by time, I mean actually Saturday or Sunday evenings when people are sat there, they're with their family, they're with their friends, and they're looking forward to basically just sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying themselves. And actually, by sponsoring the X Factor in the UK, we were able to tap into that moment. And here's a little bumper of it.
Delivering your Saturday night in. Just Eat proudly sponsors the X Factor.
So obviously we're tapping into that moment where people are enjoying themselves, and it's also the perfect opportunity to have a takeaway, of course. But the sponsorship didn't just work on TV with the bumpers. It actually worked with our restaurant partners. You can see one of our chefs there actually performing in the bumper. We ran our own Chef Factor, which is a mini version of the X Factor, where we got all the restaurant partners the opportunity to take part and enter, and then we treated it just as the X Factor. We got them down for auditions. We picked several winners, and we put them into the idents. But it also worked from product placement, which Duncan touched upon earlier, which is a way to obviously beat ad skipping, and also in the social space as well. So X Factor goes out live on ITV1 on a Saturday night, and usually it's followed by a show called The Extra Factor, which runs on ITV2, so a sister station. This year it didn't actually run, but ITV and Fremantle gave us the opportunity to produce our own version of The Extra Factor, which we called Extra Bites, where we had behind-the-scenes footage, gossip, and lots of other things going on, kind of what's coming up in the next week's episode. We ran that on Facebook. We had over 500,000 viewers on average for that show, and not only performed really well for engagement, but actually also for orders as well, which is something we weren't quite expecting, but it did work. So that's all very well and good, but how do we measure whether what we're doing is working? Well, we've really got a three-pronged approach. We've got attribution, which is kind of looking at direct response, which we use a tool called Analyzer, so we can look at cost per order, cost per installs. We can I guess, change our station mix around to make sure we're being as efficient as possible. We've got econometrics, which most of you in the room will be familiar with, which is looking at short-term and long-term ROI. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, brand health on the right-hand side, where we do brand tracking. The reason I say that's perhaps most important, because we touched upon right at the start that our main objective with TV is to drive brand fame and become a household name. And actually, that's a way to do that. So we track spontaneous awareness, top-of-mind awareness, prompted awareness, et cetera, and you can try and gauge, actually, if what you're doing is having an impact. And then I just wanted to finish on how our strategy has evolved. Back in the day, in 2010, long before my time, before I joined Just Eat, we ran a multi-channel test in the UK nationally. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough physical availability at that point. We only had, I think, about 6,000 to 7,000 restaurants. So really, we couldn't maximize the power of TV. We then ran a few regional tests where just to see if actually we could use TV. Then in 2014, when we had 20,000 restaurants in the UK, that's when we supercharged growth with a massive amount of money into TV. And that was because we had the physical availability, so we could start to build up the mental availability as well. We're always on TV from 2014 through to 2017. Obviously, we've talked about the X Factor already in 2017. And in 2018, there's 3 things that we're really going to focus on. We're trying to go for video, not TV. It's a lot easier said than done because a lot of the metrics don't talk to each other, but we're going to try and get there. Global insights, so we're in 13 markets. What tips or insights can we take from each market, wrap up, and then spread out? So we're working as hard as possible. And finally, addressable. I'm sure you're going to hear about addressable a lot today. It's a big old topic. For us, addressable really means taking our first-party data and trying to push that into the above-the-line world. And that is it. Thank you. No problem. I don't think
and I have to say that creative is brilliant, and I'm going to go and order some takeaway this weekend with Just Eat. We've got time for a couple of questions. I've got one whilst you're just thinking of them, audience. So we've got one over there. So let's get a mic over to this gentleman there whilst I ask this one. Sorry, I just wanted to ask Ross. You mentioned at the very beginning that you chose not to spend on short form. What are your views on broadcaster VOD versus short-form VOD? Why did you make that decision not to spend?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think it's partly budgeting, for starters. We're going to spend where we think our money will be most effective, and currently that's on linear TV, certainly from a price and a reach point of view. Then I think for me, it's probably about a safe environment. I think broadcaster VOD enables that, and it's also an environment we're very comfortable with, and we can sell into senior people within the business because we're already activating on their linear channels. And then in terms of short-form VOD in particular, I think at this stage, I'm just a little bit yet to be convinced over where my budget is going, where it's appearing, and who's watching it, and are they actually watching it. So we're a little bit unsure about that, but hopefully in 2018 we can make progress in that space.
Ross Duncan in 3 seconds and the sound off doesn't work, shock horror, is the headline. We've got a question over there. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, Harvey Kent from Strata. It's a Comcast company. You said in that last slide, great presentation, you said in that last slide we want to go to video, not just TV, but the metrics don't talk to each other. What are you going to do about that?
Really good question. I'm hoping to find out in 2018, or at least I'm hoping my agency finds out for me in 2018. I think it's a really tricky thing. I found actually at Just Eat, I come from a media agency background, so I'm very familiar with GRPs, with TVRs. When I moved into Just Eat, I realized that most people aren't familiar with that and are quite scared of that. So I think one of the things I'm going to try and do is actually talk about linear TV in a more digital way. So start talking about impressions, with our TV plan. And hopefully by doing that and almost having kind of a single currency, I can try and link the two things together. The issue is going to be around reach. Obviously, it's very difficult. We can get reach in isolation. So for TV, for to an extent, broadcast VOD. It's obviously difficult with some of the digital channels, but then combining that and actually working that out across the board, that's going to be really, really difficult. I'm hoping somebody in this room maybe provides the solution to that problem. It'd be great if somebody could.
Any hands up? No? Oh, there we go. I don't know. I think we've got a question here. Is that right? You're not going to provide the solution to unified measurement? Maybe next week? OK, we'll talk about it later.
I'm just interested in your percent prime. Is it 100%?
In what, sorry?
In your percent prime time in your television buy?
Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry. So kind of what day part we're buying into. And definitely not, no. We actually have a kind of a three-layered approach, something new that we've started with this year. So we almost have an old-school DR layer, if you like, where we're just buying cheap linear daytime TV, particularly around Saturday and Sunday. And then we also have a brand response layer whereby we're buying across all day parts, predominantly on a lot of multi-channel stations in the UK, so they're the cheaper, I guess, longer tail stations. And then we do buy a big layer of primetime TV as well. But obviously we scale that throughout the year depending on seasonality and what we want to achieve. It's very difficult to make primetime TV pay back in the short term, so you need to convince the business that it's worth doing that for longer term growth.
Another question.
Done?
I've got one, and another one. What does TV need to do, and is this unified metrics and scale reach the biggest thing they need to do? Is there anything else that TV needs to do to meet your needs or become an even more powerful medium?
I think it's just about starting to do it, actually, which is it's selling itself better. I think TV sat back and just took the revenue for a long time. I'm still fairly new to the industry, but that's my perception. Obviously, the duopoly came along, Google and Facebook, and they've been eating away at the revenue. I think, certainly in the UK, with Thinkbox and some of the TV stations, they're starting to sell themselves a little bit better. I think that can only be a good thing, because really now most marketing directors are actually from digital backgrounds, so you need to convince them to spend money on above the line.
Brilliant.
Okay.
One last question, or? No, OK, well, let me thank you for what's a brilliant presentation. Thank you, Ross. Cheers. Cheers. Without further ado, I'd like to invite my panel onto the stage. I think they're going to appear through this door, I hope. Whilst they're doing so, let's hope they arrive, can I just say that I've been really enjoying the quality of the stock imagery today. And I've got a brilliant market opening idea or money-making opportunity. It is to produce stock imagery of people using devices and TVs that actually looks realistic. But all credit to David Springle from YoSpace, who used a stock image of a load of people around the table on one side looking at iPads with Harry Hill in the corner, which I thought was brilliant. Harry Hill's some weird British comedian, like me. I should introduce my panel. So we have an illustrious panel to discuss playing to broadcast strengths. We have John Paul from Liberty Global. We've got Alexander Bastin from MTG. That's a broadcaster in the Nordics and around Europe. And we've got Caitlin from Syntech, an ad tech company. We've got Stefan from RTL Ad Connect. And finally, we've got Jez Rosenberg from BT, so both telco and broadcaster. So welcome. I'm pleased to say we're finally having a panel where just beforehand we've had an amazingly uplifting message about the power of TV. I think that's great from a big brand and big spender. In that presentation, he clearly showed that the most powerful strength that broadcasting has is the content itself, the broadcast content and the context, that the fact that you're sitting down, maybe lean back in the living room or in the bedroom on your iPad, and you have that 30-second audio-visual storytelling. Now, my question for you, for a starter, and maybe I'll go to you first, Jez, is ignoring that power of that content and that context, which is obviously the most powerful. What is the second most powerful attribute that TV advertising has?
I think it's around audience and reach. Is paramount for any advertiser, and hence obviously Ross presented obviously why he actually associated EAT with such a big show like X Factor, and it is about appointment to view. And I would say that reaching that at such a high level where people are engaged, is paramount compared to other platforms out there that gives you very short attention span from a content perspective.
Yeah.
You know, I look after BT Sport advertising, and you know, we reached our highest peak advertising, our peak audience on the Arsenal Man United game since we launched. And it is very much about point of view.
Yeah.
And advertisers want to be part of that experience. And you can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is also working with multiple platforms because obviously we are trying to reach those younger audiences that have different habits.
Well, I definitely want to come back to the working with multiple platforms and the collaboration question. From the rest of my panelists, any advances on reach? What else? What other amazing strengths does broadcast have?
So I would second that. So you have the contextual relevance, which was quite evident from the Just Eat charts, how those spiked. And then you have the mass reach. There's few other visual motion medias that can compete with that. But I would also factor in inventory quality, which I think needs to be debated more. So most of the sort of visual motion canvases you can put your commercial messages on don't hold nearly the quality that TV and premium digital video does. And that, I think, is vastly undervalued. I just learned the other day, I think it was even brought up yesterday in the Pathfinders event, that Facebook is now advocating advertisers to convey their commercial message within the first second of an ad. And I think that says a lot about the quality of that inventory that you can get.
I think the Just Eat creative example is the perfect example of how you cannot necessarily convey that emotion in 1 second.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Any other additions to what have we got? Contextual relevance, inventory quality, audience reach?
I think distribution strategy is really important. I worked for NBC Universal for about 4 years, and I ran their ad sales technology, both in linear and digital. And content and context are super important, but the distribution strategy against your targeting audience and your data segments truly make a campaign successful for return on investment.
So that's the point around addressability, really, which is really probably what we all, hopefully in this room, want, which is a massive growth in this area over the coming years.
Absolutely.
So yeah, addressability is a very good one. Stefan, you were going to make a point.
So a couple of things. We are used to run a big survey, a big publishing book called the TV Key Facts for many years within the group. And maybe a couple of statistics. It's 4 hours and 7 minutes in viewing time in Europe, globally, in 2016. So it's still high in terms of linear TV. We're talking about reach, a daily reach, an average daily reach of 72%, in 1 day to reach your target audience in Europe again. So I think those are two nice statistics to get. And coming back to content and what's the advantages of a broadcaster, I think we talked about addressable TV. I think we should put it, even enhance it with the term innovation. Innovation. I always say that TV has never been sexy as today. Thanks to innovation, digitalization, and all the new forms of advertising we can get. It could be addressable, but it could be also AR or VR technology in the future. You can have also creativity within, branded content, endorsement from celebrities, influencers, and at the very center of all this ecosystem lies the content, the premium content.
Yeah, I mean, I think innovation, great point, and that's, I mean, I guess slightly less sexy DAI, but I think the DAI presentation really showed how powerful that is. Actually, on a sexy note, though, I understand, I know there's some ITV people in the audience, I understand that Love Island broke all simulcast records, I think. Is that right? Are you going to shout out the percentage of audience on simulcast? No. It was 187%. It was high. And that is sexy TV, I believe. Not that I watched it, of course. No. I didn't even know what it is. John Paul, I mean, at Liberty, you span broadcast platforms, almost the whole gamut. Where are you focused on driving the strength of broadcast? Is it in addressability? Is it in innovation? Where are you focused most?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. I think the quality point is very important. I mean, we see ourselves as an enabler. And so we're really investing in capabilities and effort to enable all of these evolutions in television. So that's the first part. So whether that's addressable or use of data and that kind of thing. And we really think data should be democratized to an extent. You know, we have a currency, yes, but it's a limited panel-based currency. And I think those of us that have granular data should really be working with the ecosystem to bring those insights to bear. But the second part is, and I think I've heard this as a theme through yesterday as well, is it really is about the experiential interaction with video. And you know, we know it pretty quickly when you screw that up. And so we've spent many years designing in-home products or things that maybe not the products themselves, but facilitate the use of all of this innovation. So our other area of focus is to make sure that whatever goes on in the home and what we design is a very, very good vessel for all of these things and interactions from the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah, Jez.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think innovation is a really important part in driving that experience and user experience. We've certainly played within VR, 4K, and driving that experience to give that more engagement to the viewer, which, and again, if you're keeping them engaged, then obviously from an advertising perspective, it drives that further forward.
And okay, so we've discussed all these strengths of broadcast. What is holding things up? I mean, we heard from Ross just earlier that unified metrics is holding things up. I mean, that's without doubt.
I think we see a mix of things, right? I mean, there are operational type conflicts where it is very difficult when you're looking at a broadcast network and you're working in the States. We have the upfront season and the scatter season with our broadcast and our cable networks. And it's really difficult to go to market and know that you have to deliver $7 billion worth of advertising revenue efficiently at the best price in market and make sure that you're monetizing it correctly for what's available for the client need. But then you also have non-data standards.
Is that an internal challenge?
It can be an internal challenge.
Or is it an industry challenge?
It could be internal. It could be externally enforced by the agencies that are requesting that type of inventory and price points and constraints when you're buying that inventory. And I think that's where Syntec comes in, right? Because we support the transaction and we support the diversification. You know, we advocate for data standards. You know, we're involved in a lot of the consortiums that are in the States, whether it be in the local market or the national broadcast market or with the FCC for regulation. I mean, there's just so many parts of that fragmentation piece that make it so difficult to do a start to finish campaign plus measurement plus ROI for the teams that sit underneath.
So that's really a story around collaboration and evolving ways of working together.
Yeah, and organizational transition as the mediums change and the dollars shift in between traditional linear broadcast, live linear, set-top box VOD, traditional VOD. So it's a mix, and it has to be supported in some way by the technology infrastructure that sits below it for analyzing it from a transactional standpoint, and then also analyzing the output of delivery across all of these platforms.
Okay. Excellent response, and I'm going to come to the others for some other ideas for what's holding things up. I'm going to give you a warning first, though. I'm afraid I'm going to improvise something at the end. I haven't warned them about this. You know, we have so much rhetoric at all these conferences, and we have so little action year on year. So when thinking about these broadcast strengths and what is holding us up, you know, capitalizing on broadcast strengths, I'm going to give you an opportunity at the very end. And this is an opportunity that I really have wished I've had my whole life in business. And I'm going to give you an ultimate action point. And what this is at the very end, you can choose anybody in the world or any company in the world, and you're going to say what they're going to do to move the market on. And I'm going to come to each of you at the end. So please think about this during the course of our discussion. So it can be anything, you know. The Pope can renounce Catholicism. I'm not sure if that will help addressable TV, but you know, it can be anything. Yeah, I didn't run that by the Vatican comms team.
It's okay.
So back
to answer your question,
things holding up.
Yeah.
John Paul, bring us back on track.
We live these challenges every day. So when we started on this journey, we were faced with pretty much every possible roadblock to this, which was technology, so the capability in the set-top box, trying to convince the broadcasters to come along, trying to convince the advertisers to come along. There's the measurement piece. So for example, we've already launched linear addressable in Belgium, but it was only recently that we had agreed a way to measure it.
Yeah.
So the tech was a big part of it, not the set-top box, but also as the smart TVs get a little bit smarter. And then I think that we kind of view, because we're enablers, and we do not have a large ad business of our own, a multi-billion-dollar ad business. What we're trying to do is really just ensure that the content ecosystem is healthy, that brands can reach consumers, and that content stays healthy. So we found that the players, the broadcasters, et cetera, really fell on a spectrum of we just don't want to do this at all to very, very forward thinking. And so we just partnered with the ones that were out here first to get it moving.
Stefan, you...
Yeah, what strikes me when I listen to you and all the different topics you're working on, and here we're talking about ad tech, is in fact, it's about this complexity. It's complexity. And when you think about it in my work, of course, today as a sales house, is to bring viewers to respond to advertisers' needs. And what strikes me is about this complexity that our clients are living every day. I bet you have plenty of marketeers here, and you have maybe 15 to 30 solutions presented to you every day, and everyone has the right solution, of course, for you. And I think this, we need simplicity. And we decided 2 years ago at RTL really to work on how to simplify the access to our inventory, whatever the mean, whatever the innovation, whatever the access to our content, and then of course to your consumers, and try to simplify it to the max for our client. And it's about also this local, global discussion. Who are we fighting against? The fangas or gaffers.
And is that desire for simplicity what's been driving your ad tech strategy for acquiring ad tech companies, and also your sales consolidation? Is it really to drive simplicity?
Yeah, the drive is really a simplified access to the inventory.
Yeah.
Whatever the country, whatever the mean, it could be a big screen, a small screen, whatever the device. And of course, everything is relying on a reliable ad tech stack that we could bring to the community.
So I'd love to talk a bit about this kind of consolidation, this collaboration. We're seeing initiatives like EBX and OpenAP, and I mean, in a sense, RTL is Europe's biggest broadcaster, is very consolidated in itself. What really needs to happen next? I mean, BT, MTG, are you? I guess you can't necessarily tell me whether you're planning to consolidate with other broadcasters. Let's pretend you can. Are you planning to consolidate with other broadcasters?
No, I mean, look, I think we're coming into the world where acquisition is becoming more and more important, especially defending and protecting your business. I think, just look at the example of AT&T and Time Warner and the reasons why they did that. And obviously content's really important, but obviously, again, the data they've got on the customers that they've got brings that extra power and leverage that they can bring to the table. So that's where I see the opportunity. And I think for the first time in a long time, technology companies are there. They're able to solve problems for us. Whereas in the past, it kind of worked, it didn't work. We chose Yospace, who presented today, because they were the best-in-breed DAI provider in the market, and they've proven that they're able to provide stability to our customers, because I can't take the risk that if an ad goes down, it takes the whole service down to our viewers, and that's a really important thing that we have to protect.
Yeah.
Especially in live, right?
Especially.
Yeah. Live is a huge market, and DAI is incredibly complex when you're working on live streams. And I got to see it a little bit when I was at NBC Universal, especially with things like the Olympics and the Super Bowl, World Cup, whichever event. And it's very difficult to sync up the actual linear broadcast feed with the DAI. In some markets, you actually are required to have the exact same commercial to the exact same second being delivered in multiple environments. And it can get very dicey, and it's a horrible negative experience for a user if that goes down. So it's an incredibly important technology to have in place to be reliable for those types of monetization activities, because you can make, like, look at the Olympics. It made $1.3 billion for the Rio Olympics. Substantial amount of advertising dollars for a 14-day time period.
Yeah, I remember 1 or 2 hours while I was at ITV in a live play-out, particularly the ad break that we ran just as Everton finally scored the winner in the FA Cup final. Oops. Probably we'd best not mention, okay, sorry. Apparently somebody spilt a cup of coffee over the play-out desk and accidentally hit the run ad break button. Anyway, Alexander, on the kind of collaboration, kind of acquisition or partnership front, I mean, what are your views with respect to ad tech?
I must say, to start with, I'm excited about the opportunities that you are providing, and now I'm sitting here pretending that I'm collaborating with all these broadcasters. It's fun.
We'll go out for a drink afterwards and solve the world's problems.
No, but I think if I imagine the scenario where we are partnering with other broadcasters in our local markets or throughout Europe, the simplification of how we are able to monetize our assets is key, to your point. We have so much fragmentation in everything, not only related to ad tech, but also to viewing with various devices and time-shifted viewing and so forth. And content is growing exponentially, as we all know, so what we are viewing is also being fragmented, and we need to be able to bring that together in a smart way. And there I think there's a huge work to be done that all comes down to, more than anything else, unified measurements for all the inventory that we're able to monetize, whether it's labeled classic linear TV or it's labeled digital video. But unified measurement of it and a simple way to accessing it.
Yep.
And I think, I mean, much like any industry that's growing very, very rapidly, we do see a large extent of fragmentation right now when it comes to ad tech solutions and so forth, and that is bound to be consolidated to a few key players. I would foresee relatively soon.
Yeah. So that's okay. So that's kind of collaboration really focused on measurement amongst sell-side partners. I'm kind of quite interested by the idea of buy-side collaboration as well. And you know, John, I know that Virgin are involved with Group M's initiative, Finecast. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because that seems like a very interesting example of buy and sell-side collaboration.
Well, I think at a high level, we, to the simplicity point, the way that we're going to support that is by not trying to create standalone platforms. So in the UK, we partnered with Sky, and they're an incumbent operator of addressable, and that made sense to us. In Belgium, it's the other way around, so we're the incumbent operator, but we're soliciting participation from the other broadcasters. And so I think we are in each market very open to innovation's critical, but also there's an ecosystem there that we don't have to grenade, and that we shouldn't, and that we should play within. And so that's how we're approaching each of our markets, and it's the same in Latin America for us.
And am I right in, Jez, is BT, I'm trying to look, I looked at the Finecast website earlier, I'm sure I saw a BT logo there as well. Are you working with Finecast?
We're waiting to have conversations with Finecast, but I think it was slightly misquoted.
Okay.
But we are very interested to find out about the opportunity in this ever, moving world. I mean, one point I would say about collaboration is why are the broadcasters collaborating more and more is because of the threats of other companies out there. We all know that. And it's, if you look at, the first time I've seen that ITV, Channel 4 and Sky are collaborating together for this big TV festival in February, and that's primarily to advocate TV advertising and what can be bought on those platforms at scale to defend the businesses. And ultimately, that's why we're working with tech companies. That's why we're looking at addressable TV, is because we need to move with the times to defend those revenues quite rapidly. Otherwise, there's only one way it's going to go.
Down.
And actually, something that I noticed with interest in the UK upfronts recently was both ITV and Channel 4 talking about working on dynamic ad replacement of linear. I know, I believe RTL and have been working with SmartClip on tests with HbbTV in Germany on replacement of the linear stream. What I'm fascinated there is that it seems to be that these relationships are with device manufacturers, where the ads are actually being replaced at the display level. I'm interested to know, does that therefore mean that operators, such as John Paul and the various companies, has that now opened up a new battlefront between broadcasters and device manufacturers together versus operators? I know I've gone from collaboration to fighting each other, but whatever, I'm like that.
If you look at Europe at the moment, of course, it really depends on every status in each country. If you look at France, it's very IPTV driven. If you look at Belgium or Benelux, it's very cable driven. If you look at UK, it's very satellite driven. If you look at Germany, it's very smart TV driven. I think there will be some kind of a mix of both, of all worlds, not both, but 3, 4, 5 worlds maybe. The main thing again is about simplicity, how to provide to our customers and our clients addressable TV. And I think, if I look at the UK for instance, I think it will be a combination of, maybe AdSmart with some smart clip proposition on smart TV, and maybe Sorensen for another part of the spectrum. And then we add the 3 possibilities, then you have a tremendous opportunity. There is also nice statistics from Smart Clip. We think that by next year we will reach, or the technical reach will be of 91 million of households enabled with HbbTV addressable services in Europe. 91 million households. Again, it's a huge and a tremendous opportunity. And I think we have to embrace this.
No, I like that concept. It's just opening up new opportunities. I mean, I guess the flip side is it opens up new challenges with respect to unified measurement. But then we have the lady in the middle over there who's working on that for next week. So yeah, just another one to add to the list of to-dos. Okay, I'm going to come to the audience for questions in just a moment, but before I do, Jez, you just mentioned kind of certain digital competitors. I'm not sure who that
I don't know who I
might be. Let's choose one to discuss, because I mean, I think we've given too much oxygen to Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, YouTube, and Facebook, So let's talk about another digital upstart altogether, which is Netflix. And the thing that I find interesting about Netflix is that the content and the context is right for very, very powerful TV advertising. But of course, they haven't yet launched a TV advertising or a freemium model. How scared on a level of 1 to 10 are each of you of Netflix launching a product?
I'll go first. Personally,
number please, come on.
I'm going to go with 3, moderately waiting to see the shifts as they move into more ad-supported. But I'm from the technology side, right? So Syntech has not really any skin in the game when it comes to that factor, but we are obviously interested in the support of the health of the industry and the business model, and making sure that as these stacks diversify, and you said simplicity. I could not agree more, because what happens is you're trying to have a one-touch point for people to buy, but then you have to distribute against possibly 20 or 30 potential downstream delivery mechanisms, and you need to be able to understand your inventory, understand your price, and make it easy, and that's what we're here to do. So I probably have the most
you're
neutral,
not very scared,
right?
but
I'm
you've
like
got the least
Switzerland.
Okay, well, let's go to a broadcaster. So like, Stefan, when you're at home watching Stranger Things 2 on Netflix, how scared are you?
Well,
how scared are you of Netflix launching advertising, just to be clear?
Well,
not Stranger Things.
Before being scared or not scared, I think it's always the same thing. It's the global players versus the local players. We are representing local players, and definitely this is a challenge for us, how to react against global players. And I think we should organize ourselves in also organizing ourselves either in partnering or commercial alliances or whatever against those global players. Now regarding Netflix, I think it raises many questions. It's a SVOD, PayVOD offer. I used to do that in another life, buying rights, etc. I don't think it's going to be so easy to also buy on top of what they have already, the ad-funded video rights. We'll see, but it will take time. So first of all, it will take time.
Yeah.
Then second of all, if you look at what we have already at local level, for instance, the broadcasters VOD, there are different initiatives we can imagine. If you look at, I don't know if you're aware of it, if you look at, I had my colleague from RTL Netherlands a few minutes ago, there is a nice initiative in Holland, it's called RTL Ziet, which is in fact a collaboration of all broadcasters VOD from Pubcaster, RTL and SBS collaborating over one single broadcasters VOD offer. And you can find the best of the broadcasters catch-up TV under one roof.
Yeah.
And this is something that we should think about it maybe in the future against, a potential threat of Netflix being ad-funded as well.
Yeah.
And then, and on the other hand, we can go the other way. We are free, maybe we could go for the PayVOD and build up hybrid models.
Yeah.
These are also
after
initiatives.
All, it all comes back to the content, and sometimes actually the content on these services is a bit pants. And just for the Americans in the audience, that means bad. It doesn't mean trousers. Now, I understand some people are more scared of Amazon because, of course, they've got like an army of drones and attribution modeling and stuff like that. They're kind of a bit like what was it, the Clone Wars or something like that with an army of drones. But do you think Amazon is a threat, John, Alexander? Does that worry you more than Netflix?
Yeah. Netflix is like a 2 for us.
Yeah.
I think for all the reasons mentioned, I think even if they do advertising, it's going to be in a certain construct, and I think it even almost could help with some of the formats, innovative formats. But Amazon, I think, is a harder one to get your head around because for them this is a rounding error. It's a
wow.
and we don't know where that's where that's going to move.
Yeah.
So I think people like certainty, and I think that's just one area where when they make an announcement, share prices move. And I think that makes a lot of people nervous.
That's a very nihilistic view. I like it, though. It's like humanity becomes a rounding error in the AI future. Sorry, that was pretty deep. Okay, just before we go on to our ultimate action points, I want to see who in the audience might have a question for our panel.
There they are.
No, is everybody too scared to speak?
Stimulating.
I won't take the mickey out of you. Oh, no, there we go. Gentleman at the back. Please say who you are.
Hello, Tom from Tesila. It seems to me from listening to the panel that what we're doing is we're letting all of the FANGs go and innovate these new advertising models, and we're just going to be saying, well, TV's good and we're going to carry on doing what we're doing, and maybe we'll copy some of those models. Isn't there any innovation that we can actually do in the TV industry to actually improve the advertising experience on TV and make it better than the ones that these other guys are offering? Or are we just constantly playing catch-up?
No, I think we could correct that perception straight out of the gate. I think RTL, for example, is one of the more forward-thinking broadcasters in this area. We are all experimenting with ad formats, timing, a whole range of things. I think that we suffer from a little less agility because in many cases we're not in an IP environment. But I think there's a tremendous amount of innovation going on. And I would like to see more, particularly on the format side, because we talk about data and using data. But I think that as the consumption changes, we can definitely do some more with ad formats.
I think there's definitely a ton of innovation when you look at the creative development in a TV environment. You're seeing a lot of broadcasters go to market with custom creative, where they use, TV personalities, different delivery methods, shorter clips. You could have different types of billboards or interactive ads on screen on certain devices. I'm seeing a ton of innovation in linear environments, not necessarily as traditional as bumpers and billboards, but there's definitely a lot of room. If you look at connected television, you look at companies like Brightline ITV, they're focusing on taking a rich media experiencing and interjecting it into a linear environment, connected television environment, to give a very broad-based, engaging, creative experience for those particular users. And I think broadcast networks are eating that up, and they have their own creative teams and are working on custom creative and digitorial type pieces all the time for linear.
Okay, let's take one last question. Lady at the front here. And we need to keep this answer short because I'm still going to nail you for these action points, okay? And they've got to be short. I'm going to write them down.
That's right.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Laura from Finland, Sanoma Media Finland. I'm interested to hear about data because we have been using kind of data because TV has been bought with democratics, so on. So. What about that, and how do you think about that, and have you any plans?
So Stefan's going to answer that. Yeah. The question of data and GDPR in 30 seconds.
Yeah. They're going to short answer, I was going to say.
We talked about Amazon a few minutes ago. Yeah, it's about data. And data is a great thing, and we're really looking at it. For instance, on our broadcasters VOD, in most of the countries we represent, we have now a registered users obligation. It's mandatory. So definitely we're getting data, we're gathering data, and you should do that, guys. You should build up your own DMP because that's the future. And then you have your own DMP. Maybe you should think about maybe sharing it with lookalikes like you. There's a lot of alliances at the moment coming up. There is a logging alliance in Germany. It's between RTL, but also ProSiebenSat.1 and a telco operator. There is a good data alliance also coming up in France. It's called Gravity. It's between broadcasters and publishers, and I really think we have to increase our data capabilities against, again, the global players that have one product, it's easy to understand, and roll it out everywhere in the world, which is not what we do. We are doing very local stuff. But on the other hand, thanks to techniques and to ad tech, we can gather all this together.
It's important to note that that's one of the areas where everybody wins, right? It's clear synergies. If we can share data and we can use it smartly, we can make more money out of the advertising. We can improve the user experience. We can make more relevant products for advertisers. It's a no-brainer.
So which of you is taking the broadcast industry data collaboration action point? One of you two's got to take it. Stefan, okay, or John.
Well, we're doing it. I mean,
John, okay, John's taking that one. Okay, so data collaboration. Caitlin, what's your ultimate action point?
I'm going to take I would say the framework, right? The universal framework, because I think that's where Syntech's probably best positioned because we.
So that's ad tech.
It would be the ad tech, right? It's the.
So you're saying your ultimate action point is to make Syntech the all-powerful ad tech platform for the entire industry?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's the plug right there. No. But I think there's somebody needs to own the ability to bring in all these sources and normalize. And we're not in the business of saying what the data necessarily means, but we're definitely in the open API type realm where it makes it easy to connect to multiple sources and pull it into an environment so somebody has a framework that sits on top of it.
So everyone's going to make amazing APIs and just work harmoniously technologically. Jez, quickly.
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to double tag with JP on data, actually.
Oh my goodness. We've got the data collaboration team here. Yeah. This is the A team, everyone.
Look, I totally agree. I mean, BT are looking at DMP as well, really seriously, and it is the way forward. But the most important thing is around standardization and agreeing the principles around what sharing the data we're happy to do.
And also linear.
Yeah.
Because not only in online, but also in linear.
Of course, yeah.
You'd plug that in.
Yeah. And Alexander, what's your ultimate action point?
I will come back to the quality aspect, and I would like to see a joint press release from all the global agency groups stating that we will never, ever again pay for low quality inventory.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Ooh. Meow. I like that.
That's a good one.
That is a superb one. Well, JP, you've taken yours already. So, Stefan, what are you jumping on?
Well, I guess I will be the simplicity evangelist worldwide. And
Chief Global Simplicity Evangelist.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
I'll give you that position.
So very open for other partnerships in the world.
Perfect. Well, that leaves me to just say thank you for an excellent panel, a really interesting discussion. So, yeah, round of applause, everybody.